Hope. It is an important and constitutive aspect of the human person. It is so for you. It is that for you. Likewise for her. And it is undoubtedly that for myself. Nevertheless, those who commit some of the most abhorrent and egregious of acts, and who inflict untold suffering on others, they retain with themselves their fundamental humanity, and they carry within themselves the capacity to change. To deny them hope would be to deny them their fundamental humanity, and to do that would be degrading. Those are not my words. It is the concurring opinion of the Honorable Judge Power Ford. He presided over a case in the European Court of Human Rights entitled Vinters and Others versus the United Kingdom. In that case, the court vigorously wrestled with whether or not there was any rehabilitative value in the imposition of life sentences without the possibility of parole. This was a weighty question for the court due to the nature of the offenses before it. They were described as grotesque, sadistic, and torturous in nature. Nevertheless, the court decided to abolish the imposition of life sentences without the possibility of parole in its industrialized European sister nations. And it predicated that decision upon a principle which it called the right to hope. If applied to this great state of New York, the right to hope, it would dictate that those individuals who have abandoned criminality and remorsefully atoned for their offenses, that they too would be afforded the right to hope that they may one day be released from prison. As of 2023, in this beautiful state of New York, there were more than 9,000 incarcerated men and women who may never be released from prison because they were serving some aspect of a life sentence. Many of those individuals have long fulfilled the objectives of the criminal legal system. You see, they've been adequately isolated, they've been promptly punished, they've been duly deterred, and they've long crossed the threshold into the realm of rehabilitation. If this is the case, why are we not encouraging the right to hope and the capacity to change amongst our incarcerated? And an even more pertinent question that we should ask ourselves is, how did we arrive here in the first place? What I do know is that I was born in the early 70s at a time when the heroin epidemic, it gripped inner city neighborhoods like my own. But no one could have foresaw that an entire cohort of my generation, young men of color, that we would mature under the weight of the war on drugs, the crippling influences of the crack era, and the scholarly predictions of Princeton professor John J. DeLilio. Professor DeLilio, he concocted a theory. He said that there would be a crime wave overtaking America, and that young black adolescent males, that we would be the cause of that crime wave. He said that we were essentially remorseless, fatherless, and godless super predators, and that we would kill and we would rape without a second thought. And the public and law enforcement, they believed him. The myth of being a proverbial boogeyman from birth, it had a profound effect on the way law enforcement viewed young defendants of color. And so laws were passed and sentences were imposed to forever cage us. We were deemed incorrigible at a time when we should have been afforded a critical first look. Despite the professor's predictions, he himself would go on to say that the super predator idea was wrong. Of course, this was after crime rates dropped. and people took notice. In 1993, in the neighboring state of Connecticut, a young man by the name of Kevin Belcher, he committed a horrific burglary and robbery that resulted in an equally horrific assault. He was just a teenager, not yet 16. And the court imposed a sentence of 60 years on this young man. At the time of his sentencing, they deemed Kevin to be an unconscionable, and I quote, chartered member of the super predator group. In 2023, the Connecticut Supreme Court, the highest court in that land, they reduced Mr. Belcher's sentence, and they based that sentence reduction upon the court's initial characterization of Kevin, the professor's denouncement of his own theory, and its racial implications, which deemed black males as broken and animalistic. A precedent was set, and anybody who the court had explicitly referred to as a super predator, then he or she could be afforded a second look. Unfortunately for myself and my cohorts here in the state of New York, when we were being sentenced 20 and 30 years ago, nobody told us that we were being viewed through a paradigm that rendered us broken animals. And so our sentences remain. But I have some breaking news. We did not wait for anybody to fix us. We took initiative and we fixed ourselves. You see, early in my incarceration, I realized that rehabilitation and atonement were the objectives. And despite having been sentenced to more than 85 years to life by the time I was 24 years old, I was in the presence of men who were not just prisoners, they were mentors. And they encouraged me to pursue higher education. Many of us were high school dropouts. But we found the wherewithal, despite our harsh sentences, to confront ourselves and to acquire the tools to make critical decisions and address the wrongs that we have inflicted on others. We went on to be youth development counselors, anger management facilitators, and alternative to violence facilitators. We went on to be contributing members to our communities in the spite of our exile. And I've taken it a step further. In June of this year, I will be one of 9 individuals here at Sing Sing Correctional Facility who will be graduating from New York Theological Seminary. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With a master's degree in professional studies. What's bittersweet about this is that of the 9 men in my graduating class, 8 of us are serving life sentences. And 2 of those individuals are serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. So again, I ask you, if rehabilitation and atonement are the objectives, should we not be encouraging the right to change and the capacity to hope amongst our incarcerated? Should we not be affording them a second look? Should we not be considering the humanity behind these walls? Is that not what brought you here today? And if it is, I call you to task. New York State legislators have proposed a bill, Senate Bill 321, also known as the Second Look Act. If this bill was enacted into law, it would afford all stakeholders, the incarcerated, the harmed, and community members, an opportunity to appear again once before the sentencing court for a possible reduction of sentence. The Second Look Act would not open the floodgates to those individuals who have not been rehabilitated. If nothing else, it would merely grant us insight into where an individual is on the road to redemption. And you can have a say-so, the citizens of New York. I stand here before you today, and I don't speak on my own accord. I speak on behalf of the men and women who strive daily to change the narrative. Many of those individuals have long crossed the threshold into the realm of rehabilitation. And we have done so by the removal of criminal values, criminal thoughts, and criminal actions from our repertoire. And by anchoring ourselves in remorse and the firm resolve never to return to the dark places that we have once been. We have illuminated the illusion of the boogeyman via our truth. And we humbly ask you for a second look. Thank you. My name is Rainer Wallace.